guys, so we're back with another project. This is my case 580C. It's in relatively decent shape. I've rebuilt all the cylinders on the backhoe, put a lot of new lines on it. And then when I was using it the other day, I got the dreaded power steering orbital valve leak. A little mouse nest down here below the bottom of the steering wheel, down the steering shaft. So most people, when they have this problem, it leaks all over the floor. Where I'm getting a little bit of leakage. But where it's leaking the most, which is I've never seen before, but you know, I don't work on these for a living, it's coming right up the center of the steering column. And this is hollow, so, and it must be that I'm assuming the outside of the seal is still sealed against, because this right here is just an external tube. It's not the actual steering shaft. And I'm assuming that's still sealing pretty good. It's the center that's leaking, and it's coming up through the shaft. So I'm going to pull this steering wheel, and I'm going to start pulling this apart, and I do have the seals for it. So we'll see what it is. But they do have two little holes that you can put screws in to pull this steering wheel. But what I found out from talking to people is when you do that, it usually just pulls those threads right out of there. So I'm going to use a bearing splitter or a clamshell on the back side and try to pull that off. So I don't have a camera set up in here. I'm just using my phone. I had a little bit of time to come down here and do a little bit of work, so I'm not going to film this like I would normally film it. But when I get something set up, I'll show you how I set it up and what I'm going to do. Okay? Be right back. So this has been leaking. Well, I've only used it a little bit while it's been leaking, but it's been sitting with this oil on here for about 3 weeks. And I'm glad I let it sit, because that looked rusted pretty good, and with a wrench I was able to break it free. So I can't really do this while I'm holding the phone, but as you maybe you can see, it is turning. So I'm going to take that off and set up a puller. Alright, what we're using here is a clamshell or bearing splitter. It's an OTC 1123, and we're going to use a OTC 927. They call this a push-pull, depending upon where you put the nut. Alright, let me set this up. Alright, here it is. Here's the setup. So I got to hold this nut underneath and turn the drive rod. I got a piece of metal in between the point on the puller and the steering shaft, because I was afraid if I used the point it might flare it, because it's kind of a thin tube. So the point will hold this in place, and we'll just put a little pressure on it, and then if it doesn't pop right away, what I'll do is I'll smack this with a hammer. Usually that loosens everything up and pops it. So unfortunately I don't have enough hands to show you this, but that's the setup. Alright, be right back. Alright, so I got the outside support sleeve off. That tube was full right to the top of oil. So here's the next thing that has to come out. I got to get down there, and there's going to be a snap ring with a pin that holds it in place. Alright, so I get that all cleaned off. I'll see if I can get you in there to see that. Alright, so we got this thing apart, and if you look at it, the little pin goes through. There's two of them, one on each side, and then there's a little like snap ring that holds it in place, pin, so the pin can't come out. The pin is severely worn. One of them I lost. I think it fell out of the tractor through a hole, but really, really worn. But if you look at this, this thing is really, really bad. And that's going to account for some of the slop I have in the steering. So I'm going to see how much it is for a new shaft. But what I'm probably going to do, I could make this whole shaft over on the lathe. The only part that would be a little bit trickier is the spline setup, which I really don't feel like making that. But I'll clean this up, see how bad the shaft is. There's a couple of different ways you can deal with this. First thing that comes to mind is we could turn a piece of brass that tightly fits up inside here, clean this all up really, really good, tap it in, and I could weld these holes up. Turn it down in the lathe so it's round again, and drill a hole. Get the brass back out of there and drill a hole through. That's one way of dealing with it. But I think I'm going to go a second way. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cut the end of this off. I'm going to put a piece of solid stock there that's bigger in diameter. I'm going to put a nice weld prep on there, nice angle on each side, and then I'm going to weld it to it. Then I'm going to put it in the lathe, indicated all in so it's running true to the shaft, and then turn it down to size. Then drill a hole and drill a hole through here because the shaft has to go up and through here. Actually, you know what? It does not. I might just leave it solid. Let me see where the other part of the shaft comes up. If it doesn't come up inside here, I'll just leave it solid on the end, which will be a lot more bearing surface than it had before. So I have to take a peek and see what the measurements are, see where it sits. Okay? All right, I'm going to pull the rest of it apart. Right now, if you look inside here, the outside seal comes right off. That's supposed to be press fit in there, okay? And it's a metal one. Some of the aftermarket kits have just a rubber seal. This one's got metal with rubber on it, and the kit I bought, that's what it has. If you go inside here, there's a C-clip. Then there's a piece of brass that comes out and the seal. So there's two seals, one that seals against this shaft, one that seals against the outside of the other shaft, okay? So I'm going to pull the rest of this apart. I'll spray in there, get all that cleaned out, and I'll show you the parts and I'll assemble it. All right, so I got that brass piece to pop up. I got the little C-clip out. I actually had to start the tractor up and wiggle this back and forth while it was running. And I could see it starting to move up, and I shut the tractor off before it came right out because I wasn't sure what was going to happen. Now, once I get that out of there, I have to pull the little rubber seal out. All right, so this is the old stuff. This top dust cap just slides right on. It doesn't have any press fit at all, and it really should be. And you can see this one has some kind of a metal back, and it's covered with a rubber. This is all cracked and hard inside, where this one's pretty flexible. And there is like a little nylon ring inside there. And obviously the new brass. So we're going to go put that together. We'll put a little power steering fluid on there and put it all back together. Now when you put this back together, you have to make sure that the opening, or the side with the groove, I don't know if you can see this, faces down. And that's the lip. In all seals, when you put them in, the lip has to go towards the pressure. And then this goes down like this, and then the cap gets pressed on, and we'll use a socket to tap that on. And this up here is not a true representation that's there, because there is no spline or anything, there's just a hole. All right, the stuff that was coming out before I got the seal out was pretty cruddy, and that's because that stuff was all up inside the shaft, and there was rust up in the shaft. And obviously the stuff down here was pretty cruddy. The stuff that's coming out now is pretty clear. So I put a little bit of power steering fluid on there. Be gentle with this. You don't want to rip the seal. Let me wipe off my punch. It's hard to film this and look in here, so I'm going to push this down a little bit. Alright. I'm going to put the piece of brass in there. I'm actually going to see if I can find a socket to tap that down with. Alright, I got to use my other hand, so I'm going to pause this. Damn, that was a big bee. When I press this in, I want to hit on this side, but I want it to hit on this inside ring. So I'm going to use this socket right here, which is just about the same size as the inside ring, but up on from the other side, because I don't want to fold the outside edge over. All right, so everything's down inside there. It looks good. I'm going to put this on top. And it doesn't drop down in there, which is good. And now we'll tap it in, but I'm going to need two hands to do that. All right, so that worked perfect. Went in nice. Now I'm going to take the rest of those pots back to the shop, and we're going to repair the steering column, and I'll do a video on that. All right, so I'll see you when we're back at the shop. All right, welcome back. We got another project. I need to make this coupler. Okay, pretty simple. What this is for is it is the coupler that attaches the steering column. Up here is where the steering wheel is, and down here goes into the coupler. And this attaches to the orbital valve on my 580, case 580 backhoe. And as you can see, this is really worn out. It's supposed to be 3/8. This is beat up inside a lot. I am going to make a whole new steering column or steering shaft. But for right now, later, I'm going to, the next project is I'm going to cut this off. I'm going to put a piece of solid stock here and re-drill this hole because I need this tractor right away. I did order a piece of stress proof, and I ordered a cutter to do this spline. So that will be another project, but I will do a quick project where I just put a piece on the end here. And what I'm probably going to do is turn it so it fits inside the shaft up here, just past where it's rotted really bad.